Previously on the Challenge All-Stars. I bought a Greek salad, and I ate it. We won the hardest mission of the season, and we lost it. Hello, other people. Thanks for tuning in to DVR Czar, the channel where TV rules all. And welcome to the Recap Corner. Today, I'll be talking about Season 2, Episode 9 of the Challenge All-Stars. This episode fooled me. Nothing went the way I thought it would. Almost nothing went the way I wanted. I can't remember the last time I was so thoroughly tricked by the challenge editors. It was great! We catch up with each castmate ahead of the last mission. For what could be the final time ever, the episode opens with a celebratory King's Palace dance. But it kind of seems like they're phoning it in this time.
Baby Palace.
Honestly, I don't blame them. At this point, the three of them have probably spent about 200 hours dancing, and that sounds tiring. The rest of the cast is finally coming around, though. We learned that Save the Palace has become a shared earworm among the other alliance. We see Darrell and Janae admit it's a catchy song, and we see MJ tell his own mind to shut the fuck up when humming it.
Like, I'm taking a shower, brushing my teeth, I'm humming it. Save the palace, save the palace. Shut the fuck up.
It's too funny that this All-Stars season accidentally produced a legitimately catchy, memorable song in Save the Palace, while Spies, Lies, and Allies worked so hard to make Alien a hit, and it never happened. The other alliance is overall in a more tumultuous place than the King's Palace. Brad hopes to avoid getting eliminated right before the final, which has happened to him multiple times throughout his challenge career. Darrell needs to win because he doesn't know how many more challenges he'll be able to do, which is another in a long list of sad things to have already happened in 2022. Janae and MJ are just generally anxious about getting to the final. Janelle worries about an old back injury that flared up after the same 30-foot cenote jump that hurt Kendall. And Jody is also there. For the season's last mission, production pulled out all the stops and, for the first time in challenge history, rented 3 semi-trucks at once. I'm not exactly sure why this is a big deal, but trust them, it is.
This challenge is big for the first time in challenge history. We have 3 semi-trucks.
Yeah. 3 trucks?
The mission is called Make the Connection. 3 trucks drive down a road. Pairs start on opposite sides of the center truck. They each leap to one of the smaller outer trucks where 4 boxes are tied shut. Untie the knots to open the boxes, each of which contains a key. The keys all unlock one bigger box, which contains a 5th key. Players return to the center truck with the 5th key, climb to the top of the double-stacked trailer, and unlock another box. Take the skull, or idol, inside that box and place it on a nearby podium to stop your time. If you don't finish in 3 minutes or less, you're disqualified. Fastest duo wins. Also, the entire time you're tethered to the center truck, and if you don't untie the knots fast enough, the smaller truck you're standing on will drive away, leaving you dangling in midair attached to a moving semi-truck. I like the addition of not untying, partly because it made me think of Survivor, and thinking about Survivor makes me happy, but mostly because it was new to the challenge. Maybe not like brand new, never been done before, I can't remember for sure, but it felt like a skill the contestants don't have to use often. since multiple people failed to untie their knots in the time allotted. Of the 5 remaining teams, only Melinda and Nehemiah even completed the mission. Darrell couldn't unlock his last padlock. Jody and MJ struggled to untie knots. Really, Jody struggles to understand the concept of a knot.
Woman open.
And Ayanna and Tech's partnership continues to have the weirdest, most confusing, can't look away dynamic.
Do the baby, do the baby, do the baby, do the baby. Now push it up, now push it up, now push it up.
And then there's Brad. I need footage of whatever happened to him and Jody while TJ explained the mission's rules, because they're both so baffled by the idea of having to untie knots. It's like they never heard TJ's explanation. At least Jody eventually figures it out, even if it's too late for her to complete the mission. But Brad does this.
There's really no options at this point. When I see the ropes with the knots in them, it almost looks like a perfect handle for 2 hands. And I'm thinking, how hard could these things possibly be to get off? What the fuck, man? What is... Come on, what the fuck?
For me, this was almost as good reality TV as Ayanna stealing Jody's salad last episode. I mean, like, it just doesn't make sense. Did Brad actually think that was the right way to open the boxes? He had to know he was destroying the equipment, right? Or did he just think he wouldn't get caught? Because he's one of just 2 people competing, and of the 2, he's the only one loudly ripping hinged lids off a series of boxes. Obviously, since they're the only team to finish the mission, Melinda and Nehemiah win. I thought Ayanna and Tech might finally win one after hearing about Ayanna's family history.
I go to the first lock, and for whatever reason, it doesn't open automatically. I immediately call on my grandfather's name, because he was the king of all things that had to do with keys.
But it didn't happen. As a result of Brad's fugue state, he and Jody are sent into the arena as the last place team. This should have been the most straightforward, uneventful nomination cycle of the season. There are only 3 eligible teams, and one of them is aligned with the pair in power. It's obvious that Janelle and Darrell and Jonna and MJ are going to be nominated. But the King's Palace still finds a way to be overly showy about it. You have to admire their consistency. First, Melinda and Nehemiah do a whole bit about not nominating Ayanna and Tech, which took up 15 seconds of the episode that could have been devoted to something else. That may not seem like much time, but as we learned from Devin during Spies, Lies, and Allies,
15 seconds is a long time.
Then, at the selection, Ayanna and Tech force a tie, with Ayanna voting for Janelle and Darrell, and Tech voting for Jonna and MJ. Tech tells us that they chose to cause a tie so that the blood will be on Melinda and Nehemiah's hands, which is such an odd thing to focus on during the last vote of the season when the alliances are so clearly established. And I agree with Darrell's theory that the tie was a plan purposefully cooked up by the King's Palace. For what reason, I'm not sure. Because Melinda and Nehemiah wanted all the power? Because they wanted to see the other alliance sweat as long as possible? To create narrative tension? Only the palace knows. After the votes are in, MJ acts like it's a historic feat for him and Jonna to have avoided elimination all season, even though it happens literally all the time. And Jonna also did it last season. Then Jonna thanks Nehemiah for saving them as if he did it out of friendship and not because he views Janelle and Darrell as a bigger threat. Later, as the cast prepares for elimination, Darrell opens 3 letters, one from his wife and one from each of his kids. They're all marked "Do not open" until the night before the final. we see him read the letter from his wife, which includes a photo of his late grandmother, to whom we learn he was very close. We don't get a lot of sentimental content like this from Darrell, which is honestly one of the reasons he's my favorite cast member. But I do like seeing heartfelt segments from all the cast members every once in a while. And because we get them so rarely from Darrell, this scene felt especially special. Earlier, I talked about how thoroughly this episode fooled me. When I watched it for the first time, at this point, when the arena was about to begin, I almost turned it off. Everything that happened prior convinced me that Janelle and Darrell were going to be eliminated, and it made me very sad. I felt like the entire 35 minutes beforehand were preparing the audience for their departure. Because aside from Brad's confessionals about not wanting to leave right before the final, nothing significant about his or Jody's edit played like it was their last episode. Janelle and Darrell's edits, though, really super did. Going into the arena, they both had more confessionals than Jody and Brad, and Darrell had significantly more than anyone else, which is often a very strong indicator of who's going home. We also spent a lot of the episode hearing about Janelle's back injury. She says she's in constant pain, and after the mission, she considers leaving the game, but then decides to stay since Darrell's fate is tied to hers. Still, I figured learning about her injury was the editor's way of cushioning the blow of her and Darrell's elimination. When we see Darrell reacting to the photo of his grandmother, I figured the editors were just giving a fan favorite some emotional content on his way out. Every single thing that happened only served to convince me further that Janelle and Darrell were going to lose in the arena, and I was beside myself. The elimination is called Smash House. 2 identical structures are set up inside the arena, and each structure is divided into 2 rooms. One room is full of furniture, the other is empty. One person from each pair is in one of the furnished rooms, and their partner is in the attached empty room. There's a 6-inch hole cut into the shared wall between the rooms, and a 3-inch hole cut into a wall in the empty room. A large bin is placed outside the empty room underneath the 3-inch hole. The partner in the furnished room trashes it, destroying everything with a sledgehammer or by just throwing it really hard at the ground until the rubble is small enough to fit through the 6-inch hole. From there, the partner in the empty room, which is now full of debris, uses their own sledgehammer to further break up the rubble so it can fit through the 3-inch hole and fall into the bin underneath it. At the end of 10 minutes, both bins are weighed. The team with the heavier bin wins. Smash House is a variation of the home wrecker elimination from Battle of the Bloodlines. The difference is that in Bloodlines, only one person from each partnership competed, and instead of accumulating weight, the goal was to empty the room, still using the same technique of fitting debris through a small hole. Personally, I would have preferred the Bloodlines format, but with both partners in the room together. I do think it might be an insurance issue to have 2 people swinging around sledgehammers that close together. So an alternative could be 4 smaller rooms, one for each person competing. And if you finish emptying your room first, then you can help your partner. But I guess that would just put 2 people in an even smaller room swinging around sledgehammers together. Shoot. Brad and Darrell are in the furnished rooms, with Jody and Janelle in the empty rooms. Because the furnished rooms contain shelves built partially out of cinder blocks, the elimination basically becomes a cinder block smashing contest, because those are obviously the heaviest things in the room. It's the main reason why I preferred the Bloodlines format of having to destroy everything. At the end of 10 minutes, both bins have similar amounts of debris in them, but I'm still convinced Janelle and Darrell are going home. Darrell mentions that he's getting tired about halfway through the elimination, and at the end, he comments on how much rubble landed outside the bin after Janelle sent it through the 3-inch hole. Then the bins are weighed, and TJ announces that only 2 pounds separated them. So I'm thinking, yep, makes sense. Too much rubble didn't make it into the bin, and as a result, Janelle and Darrell are going to lose by this much. Jody and Brad's weight is revealed to be 355.3 pounds. The pause before TJ says whether Janelle and Darrell's weight is 2 pounds lighter or heavier feels so long. It's like I watched a whole other episode of just silence and the occasional suspenseful sting. Finally, their weight is revealed.
Darrell and Janelle, 357.3.
In retrospect, I did notice a couple moments that pointed to a potential Janelle-Darrell victory. Not only Brad's aforementioned anxiety about losing right before the final again, but also the reminder that Jody is historically easily frazzled. And an MJ confessional about noticing that Jody isn't working as efficiently as Janelle during the elimination. Still, I'm shocked that they didn't make the final because I thought they'd be virtually invulnerable when they first paired up. But if this episode has taught me anything, it's that everything I've ever thought about the challenge is wrong. After Jody and Brad's exit, TJ congratulates everyone for officially making the final, then announces that it's beginning right now. I'm a little nervous for Janelle and Darrell since they're the only ones who have to start the final having just finished an elimination. But at the same time, I'm also relieved that Darrell doesn't have to carry the guilt of opening his family's letters before he was supposed to. There were a couple moments of editorial contradiction throughout the episode. Nehemiah thinks he and Melinda have a good chance of beating every remaining team, even though earlier he acknowledges that Darrell is a threat to win any final he makes, naming him specifically as his biggest competition. And Janae says that Jody could beat her in a final, even though last episode there was a whole scene about Janae thinking the opposite. After the nominations are revealed, Darrell says this about Janae and MJ.
Now we'll watch Janae and MJ brown nose and kiss ass. That's what they do best.
His confessional stuck out to me because that aspect of Janae and MJ's partnership wasn't at all included in their edit. And it's also not elaborated on in this episode, aside from when Janae talks to Ayanna before the vote. But even then, I feel like I'm reaching so hard I'm about to pull a muscle. MJ has quietly inserted a catchphrase for himself over the past few episodes. Or maybe it's a catch noise? Either way, I'm gonna miss hearing it when the season ends. This Melinda confessional out of context really makes me laugh.
Watching MJ get yanked off of the semi was such a rush for me.
And finally, just a couple visuals I really liked. Tech's confessional outfit, which I think is the best look of the season. And this shot of someone's debris bin during elimination, where you can clearly see the bottom half of a decorative skull. And that's it. All my thoughts about the 9th episode of the 2nd season of the Challenge All-Stars. Want more challenge recaps? Then come back next Wednesday when I'll be talking about the final. Thanks for watching. Bye. When Darrell cries, I cry.